Okay, and welcome back. This is for the Math for Business and Finance students and the Math Application students. We're working on Chapter 1 word problems, the odd number problems, and we're picking up where we left off, which, let me scroll down here, problem 1-63. Okay, all right. Hometown Buffet had 90 customers on Sunday, 70 on Monday, 65 on Tuesday, right? So immediately, even before I finish reading, I'm starting to think I'm going to have to total these up in some way, shape, or form. Because generally, when you get a list of stuff and they're by weekdays, you're gonna need to know how many for the total, right? So I have 90 on Sunday, 70 on Monday, 65 on Tuesday, and a total. Notice it says a total of 310 for Wednesday to Saturday. Okay, well, Wednesday to Saturday is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 4 days. And so if I had an average for each one of those days, I'd divide it into 310. But that's just extra information that I'm thinking about in the back of my head. Okay, the information tells me the facts tell me that there's a total of 310. The facts being from the blueprint aid from Chapter 1. Okay, so how many customers did Hometown Buffet serve during the week? Well, isn't that what I was just talking about? All right, so I had 90 and 70, 90 and 70, and 65, and 310. So that's 5, 9 and 1 is 10, and 13 is 23, and that's 535 for a total. If each customer spends $9, what were the total sales? Well, if I have 535 customers, and they all spend $9, right? Then the total would be 9 times 5 is 45, carry my 4, 9 times 3 is 27, plus 4 is 31, carry my 3, 9 times 5 is 45, and 3 is 48. So the total amount that they spent was 4,815. Another way to think about it is if I wrote 9 535 times, right? I'd end up with, and I added them all up, I'd end up, 4,815. And that's the property of multiplication. Multiplication and division are based upon addition and subtraction. By using multiplication and division, we could cut down, save the amount of work that we're doing by adding and subtracting. Okay. All right. Next problem, 65. Okay, Ryan Surrey works at U.S. Airways and earned $71,000 last year before tax deductions. Well, okay, so after tax deductions, we might have a different amount. From Ryan's total earnings, his company subtracted. See how if I stay actively involved in thinking about the information as I'm reading it and trying to keep it all in the back of my head, if you saw in the last problem, by actively working with the information, I'm almost getting ahead of myself, and in this case here, I did the same thing. From Ryan's total earnings, his company subtracted 1,388 for federal, 4,402 for Social Security, and 1,030 for Medicare taxes. What was Ryan's actual or net pay for the year? Okay. All right, so 2 ways of doing this. We could take the 71,000, okay, and then we know that we have to subtract 1,388 from it. We have to subtract 4,402 from it, and we have to subtract 1,030 from it, okay, in order to get that amount. Now, I said 2 ways of doing it, all right? The easier way is to add up everything that you're going to deduct, you're going to subtract. You add it all up first and get a total and then subtract it from that amount. So if I take 1388 and 4402 and 1030, add them up. So 8 and 2 is 10. 8 and 1 is 9 and 3 is 12. 7, 8, and that's 6. So I have $6,820 in deductions, And if I subtract that from 71,000, I end up with 2 from 10 is 8. Remember that this here now becomes a 0 and this becomes a 9. Okay, 8 from 9 is 1, and this becomes a 6, which makes 6 from 10 is 4. So I end up with 64,180 as my answer. Okay, this is the way I would do it. I would add up all of the deductions and then subtract it from the net pay. The other way to go about doing this, and the longer way, would be to take the 71,000, subtract 1,388. Okay, so from that I'm going to get 2. From that I'm going to 8 from, let's see here, this is going to end up being a 0.99, right? Because I'm adding the 1 over here. So 8 from 9 is 1, 3 from 9 is 6, and then 1 from 0, I have to make that 6. All right, that's 9, so I end up with 69,612. From that, I have to subtract the 4,402. 0, 1, 2, 5, 6, and then I have to subtract the 1,030, and I end up with 0. That's 1, 1, that's 8. That's 1, and that's 4, and I arrive at the same thing. So the two different ways of going about doing it is, one, you can start out with your 71,000 and then subtract and get another figure. Subtract the deduction, get another figure, subtract the deduction and get your bottom line, your net pay. Or the easier way, subtracting is a little bit more difficult than addition, so I'd have more of a tendency to just add up all the amounts that I'm going to deduct, get a number, and then subtract that from my gross pay in order to end up with my same net pay. Two different ways of arriving at the same thing. Okay. All right, let's see here. 67. All right, 67. Roger Company produces beach balls and operates 3 shifts. Roger produces 5,000 beach balls per shift on, okay, there's 3 shifts, and he produces 5,000 beach balls per shift on shifts 1 and 2. So shift 1, 5,000, shift 2, 5,000. On shift 3, the company can produce 6 times as many balls as on shift 1. Well, if on shift 1 he can produce 5,000, right? And on shift 3 they can produce 6 times as much, right? That means they can produce 30,000. Okay. Right. See again, notice how this here is, using information, and I need to modify it. Okay. On shift 3, the company can produce 6 times as many. 6 times as many as shift 1. Right? Well, how much is for shift 1? 5,000. So that's, I'm sorry, this was 6, not 3. Let me erase that. We're not all perfect. All right, 6 times as many, so that's 6 times the 5,000, or 30,000. Okay. All right, assume a 5-day work week. How many beach balls does Roger produce per week and per year? Okay. So we need to come up with 2 amounts. We need to figure out, when we figure out the per week amount, then we just multiply it by 52 to come up with the per year. Well, if on one day, in one day, shift 1 produces 5,000, shift 2 produces 5,000, and shift 3 produces 30,000. So per day, the total that of all 3 shifts is 40,000. That's per day. And it says on a 5-day work week. Okay, so we want to know how many they produce in a week. So if we have 5 days, we multiply that by 5 days, and that means they produce 200,000 for the week. Okay. And if we take the 200,000 and we multiply that by 52, okay, now notice what I'm doing here. All right, actually let me erase and use a different color to show you the difference in math. Okay, if I had 200,000, and I already showed you why I'm using a K as a shortcut, and I'm going to multiply it by 52, okay, well, if I do the math the long way, right, I could just do the math the long way, but let me show you an even more quicker shortcut. Notice that in this 200,000, all of these numbers are zeros, okay? So doing multiplication, the inverse of it ends up being the same thing. So I can actually take the 52 and multiply it by the 200,000 this way, okay? Now notice what I'm doing. All I have to do is just 2 times 2 is 4, and 2 times 5 is 10, and then just bring down all of my zeros, okay? And I end up with 10,400,000 is my answer. If I do the math the same way, by hand over here, I get 2 times 0 is 0, 2 times 0 is 0, 2 times 2 is 4, and then 5 times 0, 5 times 0, 5 times 2 is 10, and I add it all up. So, fit, yes, okay. And I can bring down my thousands. Now, again, that thousands represents 0, 0, 0. So I end up with the same number, 10,400,000. But because I am aware of that when I multiply 0 times anything, it ends up being 0, all I need to do is just pay attention to the whole numbers. And I can use this quick shortcut by keeping the zeros to the right and only multiply these here whole numbers to get this figure right here, and then all I need to do is just bring down all of the zeros in order to arrive at my answer. A quick shortcut, but that's how we end up with that answer to the question. So real quick as a recap, 3 shifts, okay, 5,000 a shift for shift 1 and shift 2. Shift 3, 6 times as many as 1. So I have 6 times whatever I have for shift 1, which is 5,000 for shift 1. So 6 times 5 gives me 30,000 for shift 3. That's per day because we have 3 shifts in a day. So 5,000, 5,000, and 30,000 is 40,000. The question is asking a 5-day work week. So we multiply by 5 to find out that we get 200,000 in a week. And the question is asking us how many per year. Okay, so that's 200,000 times 52, which ends up being 10,400,000. Okay, I realize that these here screens get a little messy, okay, but hopefully you just follow along with whatever is there. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to contact an instructor. Okay, and I will move on to another video and problem 1-69.